Welcome, great to see you. Welcome along to another jam-packed video full of poker advice, guaranteed to improve your game, your personal relationships, and your sex life. It won't improve two of those, but it will improve your poker. Today, we are going to talk about how to win poker tournaments, or if you prefer, how to close out poker tournaments. Now, this is something I have seen a lot of people do. I've commentated on a ton of EPT events, UK IPT events, WCUB events, Sunday Million events, and there are certain commonalities which will make the difference for you deep in poker tournaments. Now, the reason I'm making this video today is I just watched the 2016 World Series of Poker final table. You can probably go and watch it after this if you like, and you'll see the heads up there between an aggressive amateur player and a really experienced pro. And I think the experienced pro, Gordon Veo, who's a very good player, made a couple of mistakes. Now, this is easy for me to say, right? I'm not playing heads up for $3 million, but we can really learn from it. And especially when we get to number 4 on the board here, it's a huge one. So you're going to want to stick around for that. But let's break down how we make the difference. And before we do, I want to tell you how important this is. If you play tournament poker and you're determined to do well in tournament poker, the key to doing well is to make the most of your deep runs. Right? Make the most of your deep runs. When you look at the end of the year between a really big winner in tournaments and a break-even player in tournaments, the difference will be that the big winner made more of their deep runs, right? Now, there's some stuff you need to do, like building stacks early and in the middle of tournaments, which we'll talk about another day. But when you get to the end of tournaments, you can really make the difference by just having an edge over your opponent. So let's talk about how we do that, kind of from 2 tables down and on the final table. The first of all, and it's kind of a big meta key to this, is to focus on your process, not your situation. Process, not situation. Now, you are going to be in an exciting situation. Doesn't matter if it's online in a $1 tournament or live in an EPT. It doesn't matter. You are going to be excited. And the reason you're going to be excited is this is mission accomplished, right? You've got deep in the tournament. Yay you! But not quite yay you, because like we said, there's a massive difference between finishing 12th and finishing 1st. It's not, that tiny difference in terms of the number of players. It's actually a massive difference because the pay jumps get massive, as you know. So we want to make that difference. And all of that stuff that I've just said about being excited and trying to win the tournament is completely unhelpful to you. And you see it all the time if you watch final tables. Some players go one way where they get worried about busting because of the money involved and they play too tight. Other times players go the other way and they play too loose and aggressive because they're anxious that they want to make it happen, right? They want to win it all. Both those things and all of that emotion is unhelpful. The way that you win poker tournaments is just by continuing to make good decisions, right? That's all we can do in poker. That's all we can control. So you want to give yourself the best chance to make good decisions. So focus on your process. And by process, I just mean the process of playing each hand with concentration, focus, and clear thinking, dealing with each hand as its own separate problem, right? And then when you're not in a hand, thinking about your opponents, their stack sizes, the dynamics, watching the hand that's in play and trying to get more information and more reads, really focusing in on the now. And with that constant focus on the now, your opponents, their stack sizes, the hand you're playing right now, you will get rid of all of that emotion, right? You can only focus on one thing at once. It's impossible to focus in an intense way on a poker hand and think, oh, I could buy a new car. It's impossible to do those things at once. So bring your focus back. Easier said than done, but vital that you do, that you focus on your process. Now, number 2 is to adjust. It is a very different thing to play the last 5 people in a poker tournament than it is to play a full table early in a poker tournament, right? Early in a poker tournament, you can play much more by rote. So you can go, okay, I've got 7-2 offsuit. I know what I do with that. Now I've got pocket kings. I know I'm going to want to put some chips in the middle. Some of those rules still persist, right? We're going to be driven by our hand strength to a certain extent, but you've got to become so much more flexible in your thinking. Every situation will be different. You'll be facing, at the end of a poker tournament, a variety of playing abilities, a variety of playing styles, a variety of approach. Some people will be playing well, other people will be tired and not playing well, some will be anxious, some will be too tight, and so on. You're also going to face a variety of stack sizes, right? You're going to face kind of short stacks, big stacks, and so on. So the situations will become more acute. Every decision matters because you're at the end of a tournament, and you're going to see all those different factors in play. So you must be able to adjust. Now, this is not some big thing where you go, right, I'm going to change gears now, I'm going to do this now, I'm going to do this now. It's not totally in your control. So the way we do it is we just have a situational approach, right? Like I said, your process. Every hand is different. To give you an example of this, there was a year, TJ Cloutier, I'm going to guess 2002, but I could be miles off. TJ Cloutier ended up at the final table. It was the year that Jesus Ferguson won. And TJ Cloutier arrived at the final table as the short stack. He basically didn't play a hand for like 2 hours or something because every other player was playing really loose and aggressive and they all bust. And TJ just sat there in his TJ Texas, relaxed fashion, watched them all bust and suddenly was in the heads up. Now, he still didn't have any chips, but he'd moved up like tons and tons and tons. Now, TJ normally wouldn't play that tight, especially at a table where he thought he was one of the better players, but he adjusted. Everyone else was busting and going crazy, so he thought, okay, I don't need to do anything. And he nearly won it, right? He came a flip away, I think, or an all-in away from actually winning it before runner-upping. So it's vital you're aware of your situation, you adjust to it, but critically you adjust to your opponents on a hand-by-hand basis and also at the table you're at in general. Now, one of the key ways we're going to adjust is by monitoring stack sizes. The deeper we go in a tournament, the more important stack sizes are. And that's because the deeper you go, the more your chips are worth. And then when we get really deep, the last few positions, they relate to money jumps. So, you know, you're relating your stack sizes to your money jumps always. Now, this isn't the kind of video where we're going to go in depth about independent chip modeling, ICM. But if you want to be really good in poker tournaments, you want to get into that. So Google it, start playing around with some of the software and understanding how it works. In general, though, it's important to understand that your stack size needs to influence your play. So for example, what you'll quickly learn with ICM is that you don't want to be putting yourself in a situation where you can bust without a big edge if there are stacks shorter than you that are still in play. And the bigger the money jumps, the more that statement is true. So let's say you're third in chips out of 6 players and there are 3 very short stacks and there's big money jumps to come. Well, if you now bust, that is a catastrophe for you because you were expected third place, right? You expected to get third place prize money. It's not quite that simple, but you take my point. And you've just bust, so you actually get 6th. So that is a catastrophe. Unless you had a big edge when you put your money in, you've probably made a mistake. So you need to be super aware of stack sizes and how they interrelate as you get more and more short-handed. So the first port of call for that is to make sure you know the stack sizes, right? At all times when you play tournaments, you must know your opponent's stack sizes, but at the end of tournaments, there's no excuse. You must know them to the big blind, right? So constantly when you're not in hand, check you know the stack sizes of the other players. Check you know your own stack size. And then step number 2 is ask yourself, what are my opponent's attitude to their stacks? So one player with a 30 big blind stack is going to play very differently from another. A competent pro is going to adjust perfectly to their stack size. An amateur or a recreational player or someone who's in a bigger tournament than normal might become way too tight, right? And he might never want to shove with 20 big blinds. So you can exploit that by attacking him. He might go the other way and just play far too loose, in which case you can sit back and allow him to bust. But you've got to be aware of this. You've got to be focused on it as you go through. So those 3 are kind of a 3-step thing to think about when you're actually playing hand for hand. Number 4 is away from the table, and it is critical, absolutely critical. Actually, it's critical if you want to do well in tournaments in your career and life generally. You need to practice short-handed and heads-up poker. You need to practice short-handed and heads-up poker. Now, in the 2016 World Series of Poker final table, I'm sure Gordon Vail practiced, but he probably didn't specifically practice being in a heads-up against an aggressive amateur who was making big bets and constantly putting to big decisions. Now, he may just have been a little bit tired, or he may have thought his game plan was working. But I think if you go back and watch that, you'll see someone who isn't perhaps adjusting enough to their opponent, right? We don't want to be in that situation. We also don't want to be in the situation where you're not comfortable playing short-handed and heads up. Now, if you're watching this thinking, oh, I don't like short-handed, I don't like heads up, the only reason that's true is that you haven't done enough of it, right? Being uncomfortable or worried about a certain type of poker comes from not doing enough of it. No one is born a genius heads-up player. You just do it more and get more comfortable. And you will enjoy it, trust me, because you get to make more poker decisions when you play heads-up or short-handed. So you must practice, right? Like we said at the beginning of the video, what you do when you're deep in tournaments is what governs whether you're profitable or not, right? And how profitable you are. And all of the money is decided in the last 3 or 4 spots, all of it. So if you're going through tournaments playing really well 9-handed and 10-handed, but you can't play short-handed and you hate heads up and it scares you, well, guess what? You're giving away all of your profit. And when it matters most, you're going to be playing your worst. We need to flip that equation. So it's a very simple piece of advice. Practice and get comfortable with short-handed and heads-up poker. Whether you do it live or online, whether you drop down stakes to do it, seek out a heads-up tournament or a 4-max tournament, whatever it is, spend some time working on this element. It's a massively overlooked part of most MTT players' games, and it's where you can have an edge and make a difference and make a success of your tournament career if you're an absolute killer when it goes short-handed and heads up. All right, I hope you've enjoyed that one. It was fun to do, and I really wish you well next time you're deep in a tournament. Tell me all about it. Do leave me a comment under the video. Let me know what you thought, and let me know what else you'd like one of these free videos about. Give this a like and a share on Facebook and other social media so that you can share it with your poker friends, because that's a nice thing to do. Gives them the benefit. All right, thanks so much for watching. I'll talk to you again in another one of these very soon.